Psychology is the new firewall, where human insight trumps every trick. We're not hacking systems, we're hacking behaviors so you won't click. No complicated code, just tried and true brain science at play. Social engineering for good, the best defense is in your mind today.
Hello and welcome to Phishing for Answers, where the carrot beats the stick and we flip the script on the bad guys, turning humans from easy targets into the strongest line of defense.
The views and opinions expressed on this podcast belong solely to the hosts and guests and don't necessarily reflect those of their employers or sponsors. We're seasoned security professionals, but this is a conversation, not a custom consultation. Need specific guidance? Reach out to Joshua Crumbaugh directly.
Get ready. Phishing for Answers starts right now.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Phishing for Answers. Today we have Chris Tarbell with us, former FBI special agent, as well as the host of Hacker and the Fed, the podcast, and well, so many other things. I'll let you introduce yourself.
That's all the good ones. Those are the best highlights. Thanks, Joshua.
All right. Well, hey, it's a pleasure to have you with us today. I'm really excited to chat with you and just hear some of your stories. Now, I always focus on the human element, and so I'll just start there. Like, how much did that human error play into you being able to take people down along the way?
All of it. It's all human error. I mean, if they were perfect, we wouldn't be able to catch them. You have to make a mistake in order to get caught. In law enforcement, you're doing great if you catch the bottom 25%. And so, a couple of the guys I caught, they only made the one mistake, but there were others. Man, they made a whole plethora of mistakes.
Yeah, tell me about one of those, just where it's nonstop mistakes.
Sure. We arrested this one guy who he would log in from, he thought he was cool by logging in from his neighbor's IP addresses, but they all came back to the same one. And so a simple drive-by found his Wi-Fi device not active, all of his neighbors active, and so it was pretty easy to narrow it down to the right apartment for the guy doing the stuff. So that was one. But one that is the simple mistake, and one of the biggest cases I worked was my partner on Hacker and the Fed, Hector Monsegur. He was at the time went by Sabu, and he simply was emailed a link. He clicked on that link. He thought his VPNs were up. He used busy boxes to hide his traffic, but the one time just came out of a nap and clicked on a link, and it went into a compromised box. And then I had his IP address.
Oh wow! Just like that. So
that simple.
So, I mean, there's the opposite side of it. Tell me about, AV Unit.
AV Unit got away. I never was able to get it. So AV Unit, so LulzSec was, Hector Monsegur, Sabu was the leader of a hacking group called LulzSec. We were able to arrest all 5 members except for AV Unit. So once I arrested Hector and he started working with the FBI, it was pretty easy to track down. Now, he didn't know the other people in his crew. That's one thing. These hacking groups, they even don't dox each other. So, they don't know who each other are. So he didn't have a lot of clues, but we had a lot of conversation. So we were able to, get clues from those conversations and pull things out. But AV Unit, he bailed out before we could get to him. Hector always believed that AV Unit was an undercover Secret Service agent, but because all that guy did was he provided infrastructure. And so it kind of aligns up, but I checked with the Secret Service and they didn't have anybody working undercover those days. At least they admit to me.
Oh, that's great. So Cybersecurity and hacking has changed a lot over the years. Before we get to how AI is impacting it today, uh, tell me about how it was different when you first got into, when you first started hunting cyber criminals.
Man, log files. All we had was like HTTPS access files and that sort of thing. We didn't even have Splunk. We would have to grep for IP addresses and go through
Oh,
things,
no.
or go through with Notepad, or a text editor to look for things and put things. Excel has limited to what was it, 1,000,002 lines, and if the log files were bigger than that, then we were screwed. Literally, that is how we were going through these access log files. We didn't have the tools, and so that really was the beginning of all for us. But it was good because you learned. But also the criminals didn't have a lot of good tools either. So it was almost a
Fair
fair
enough.
fight back then.
So what about now? Is it a fair fight now?
No, 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 no. The bad guys have much better tools. They so that's the one problem with law enforcement is we react to things. Not a lot of proactive law enforcement, which is good because you don't want to stymie. I'm a technologist. I don't want to stymie technology, but it's reactionary, and they can use the tools a lot faster than we can, and they have better access to stuff.
Yeah.
Even with tokenization, they still have access. They had access to GPU boxes to crack passwords long before I did in the FBI. We had a bad guy's computer that we arrested, a guy named Chaos, and we had his computer, but everything was encrypted. It literally took the FBI 6 months to crack his password. His password was simple. It was Chewy12345. It was the cat's name.
Social engineering might have been a quicker way to get it,
It
actually.
probably would. Well, like that's the thing. We used to try to go through a computer and used to make a word list and use that word list to crack passwords. Maybe he didn't talk about the cat. I don't know. I didn't do that part of the forensics on the case, but man, it would have been great to get that computer long before it took the FBI to crack it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can say from personal experience because I was an ethical hacker, and it was always or almost always stupid passwords. Like, I remember there was this one guy that would change his password every year, but we and multiple times during the year, but it was always predictable. And so, since we got his password the first time, we would just be like, okay, how many times has he had to reset his password? Okay, here's what it is, and we would get in every single time. And so, I still think passwords are a terrible technology, and I'm glad that passkeys is starting to get replace them. It's a much better solution.
I think it's just a technical savvy, though. I love podcasts like this that get out and tell people how to get passkeys, how to make it easy. I love sites that force you to have it. Um,
Yes.
you know, they force people. The technology is there. Whatever mechanism you have to make yourself more secure and make yourself not the low hanging fruit. I'm all about it.
Well, I also think that the beauty of passkeys is its simplicity. For the longest time, everything cybersecurity made things more difficult, and with passkeys, it makes things easier. And if we really want the average person to be more secure, we got to make it easier.
Until your mom loses it, and then you're spending so much time. That's the only downside is there's
It
a
would be my
generation out
dad,
there
but
that
you're
doesn't
okay.
protect their passkeys so well.
Yeah, that's funny. So AI is changing everything. What stood out to you the most recently?
How easy and fast it is to make deep fakes. You and I are putting our voice out there, and deep fakes,
Oh, yeah.
apparently it only needs 3 seconds is the latest thing. 3 seconds of your voice, and you're able to do it. We did cover a story on Hacker and Fed this week about, a woman lost $15,000 because she got a call from jail from her daughter, and she sent the money. One thing I got to get out there: the police, the FBI will never call you and ask for money. That's never how the process in the United States works. So never fall for that one. Uh,
Well, I
but
mean,
yeah,
but to that
how fast
regard,
and
the
easy it is.
CEO is not going to call you asking for gift cards either. I mean, there's some basics that I really feel that are still lost on the general populace.
If someone's getting a hold of you and trying to make you do something quickly and trying to make things go fast and try to make you not think about things and you just stop and take a breath. Wait,
Yeah.
does this make sense to me? I had a buddy this week. My buddy got an email from the school secretary that his kids go to this school, and there was like some sale coming up because Miss Rhonda was moving, and it was like a tractor for 3,800. And I'm like, Derek, do you think you can get that tractor for $3,800? Does that make sense? Just Google that tractor, and everywhere else it's $15,000. I mean, and who's Miss Rhonda? He goes, I don't know. I said, yeah, they're trying to get you to move quickly, and you can't miss out. They use FOMO against you.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that particularly when it comes to cognitive biases, the bad guys are light years ahead of the defense because they're aware of and exploiting the cognitive biases, and we, for the most part, are not. And the like a few that I find really interesting, the authority bias. We were just talking about how the state's not going to ask you for money, the government's not going to ask you for money over the phone, how your CEO is not going to send gift cards. But if we had our defenders just as aware, and if they were using that same authority bias to make sure that they got a message from the CEO or whoever it happened to be first saying, hey, I'm never going to ask you to buy gift cards, we could take that bias and flip it on its head. And I think that's one of the areas that just in my opinion, we've really not stayed ahead of the game on.
No, I completely agree. If people just went into being online as thinking about being in the wild, wild west, and everyone's out to get you. I hate that mentality because I'm a humanist. I love people. I love being around people, but on the internet, people are trying to trick you. They're trying to exploit you. So just go in with a guarded mindset of, well, this doesn't make sense. If I wouldn't do this in real life, why would I do this online?
Yeah. Well, and I think it doesn't help matters that most of the modern world has not seen any sort of real threats hitting their country in their lifetime. And it makes people, they have almost this what's the word I'm looking for? They have too much sense of security when they should realize that the internet's really redrawn the battle lines, and that means the bad guys can be in your living room, they can be in your bathroom, they can be wherever you are, wherever your device is.
And people also get complacency thinking that they don't have anything valuable. Like, I don't have any money, I don't have any Bitcoin, I don't have any cryptocurrency. You may work someplace. Your
Yeah,
husband may work someplace that a client list or some sort of access. When we were at during COVID, so many work from homes, and you're on the same router. If I can infect that router, then I'm going to get business traffic. I'm going to get what I'm looking for. Don't get complacent about those sort of things. You may have some sort of connection that you don't even know about that is valuable to somebody. And if
yeah,
it's not that, they still want to use your home router as a hot point. They're trying to affect you to exploit the stuff you have. I mean, we're seeing that big with Anthropic, where they put export controls on it. You could go to China and get access to Anthropic still because there were so many hot points for sale with US IP addresses. And so, the Chinese still had access. You can put whatever export controls you want on things. There's plenty of US based IP addresses you can buy because people's homes routers have been popped.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I completely agree. Uh, well, I think AI in general is one of those things that, well, it's Pandora's box and it's been opened, and unfortunately, there's no closing it now. And I mean, I for one am a little concerned about what that means in the future. The benefit I will say is that we do have AI to fight AI with. But if the bad guys are so much ahead on weaponizing it and we're behind on, using it for defense, then yeah, they're gonna win. And we're about to have a really rough cyber year.
I think it's going to be tough at first, but I think we're going to win in the end. I think the good guys are going to use it. There are some really good, strong AI defensives coming out. It's just we have to catch up and we have to get access. I mean, these
Yeah.
billionaires and trillionaires they're building these models, and they need to make their money back from this investment. And so, to get access to the Anthropics and the big stuff, it's tokenization is out of control. I mean, I know a lot of the security companies, if you're not spending 25 million a year there, they don't want to even pick up the phone right now. But they're also giving access for free to these big banks and to big industry partners to secure their stuff.
Yeah.
Problem is they're finding 25,000 vulnerabilities at once. It takes a long time to fix.
Yes, it does. Well, I mean, that's where one of the areas I think that AI is going to be interesting is helping us dot all the I's and cross all the T's. That's an area I really am excited about because so much, at least every time I broke into a company, it was always the things that fell through the cracks that let me in, the things that they forgot about, the things they set up today that were only going to be up for a day, but they left default credentials on it or whatever it happened to be. I mean, and I've got a real story like that where we start with this. It was New York City retailer that we were doing an assessment on. We find a self password reset tool that is on their perimeter. And when we get to the page, we notice that the credentials auto-populate. It's default credentials, but they auto-populate. And it was just admin at that. But we click log in. And so we get in and it says, okay, would you like to sync your Active Directory with a third-party database? And we're like, yes, you know. And so we sync it. And this is within probably 15 minutes of starting the assessment. And now we've got every single username and password hash for their whole company. And they still had, I guess I'm dating myself a little bit, but they still had quite a few accounts that were landmans. So we were able to just pop them like nothing. But it's those things that still happen every day. One of my newer clients that I recently brought on, they came to me after they had an incident, right? And so we're helping them. And but it was the same thing. It was a misconfiguration from somebody in IT that didn't quite understand what was done that led to a ransomware incident that probably wouldn't have happened if it wasn't just for that one misconfiguration or that one bit of human error. So I still see that as the number one thing, even when it's not people clicking on fish.
Yeah, yeah, the amount of devices that are bought, these fancy, $1 million firewalls and plug and play, and they think they don't have to configure them right. That they need outside help. I mean, so a lot of these, mid-level level companies, they have IT companies, IT departments. Well, IT is about service, providing services. That's not security. Security is about limiting services and making the ship liner, compartmentalized. So
Yeah.
if there's a nick in the whole ship doesn't have to go down. And that's not service based. You're not getting things out to your clients, your workers, like you want to. And that is 99% of the times that's what we're seeing too, is the misconfigurations of these huge devices that could easily be tweaked. And hire a good third party that knows how to do it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's the third party is not just about having that expertise. It's about keeping your own people honest. And I don't say that in a way like the IT team is going to be lying to you. I mean, that's not that often that they're going to lie. But what I mean is they may make mistakes. They may not realize what happened, and you need that independent sort of third party view, in my opinion, at least once a year, if not more often than that. And I think with AI, finally, it can be a lot more often than that.
But that third party also brings experience. Like your guys are seeing the same things over and over on your same systems. A third party can come in and hey, we were working with this XYZ company and they were having this problem. You might not be having that now, but we can fill that gap right now.
Yeah.
And then also getting some threat intelligence. There's a lot of great companies out there that kind of where are things coming from? How are attacks
Yeah.
happening? A lot of great companies out there setting up honeypots and seeing where the next attack vector is and what people are working on and what North Korea is trying to pop, what China's trying to pop. And you may fall under that. Oh, hey, we have some of those. We should probably change something out or not dangle something out there or geofence or do something simple.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, the simple point, just to echo what you're saying, I almost never see companies that have done everything they can to just harden their existing infrastructure. It's always, let's go buy more tools and all that. And I'm not saying that tools aren't great, but you need to start just with the basics, and that's locking down everything that you have. Because if you don't start there, nothing else is going to matter.
Yeah, new CTO or new CISO comes in and they just want to buy new stuff. They demand to have a new budget and they buy all these toys and they just don't let them talk to each other. They're not getting the best out of these things. It's fun to get new toys. Everyone likes to play new toys. But again, having a third party configure it properly and give you that experience that they're seeing, but you have to do your due diligence on where you're going to get your third party from.
Yeah.
Because there are, unfortunately in cybersecurity, there are a lot of snake oil salesmen out there.
Oh, yeah, yeah, tell me that. I mean, there sure are. But so let's flipping the subject a little bit. Tell me, what was your favorite story? I mean, you spent quite a long time taking down cyber criminals. There must have been one story that really stood out to you.
Well, my favorite story and my favorite time are probably two different things.
Okay.
Because I mean, not to reiterate, but my partner, Hector, we're best friends now. Like we have a podcast together, we hang out together, we travel together, we go do speeches together. So someone I arrested and I essentially I hung 125 years on him. I had enough things that he would have done 125 years in prison. He worked with me for 9 months. We saved 300 hacks into the U.S. government, thousands of hacks into other U.S. companies, and then hacks around the world, into the thousands. We were able to stop of what was just his access, what he was doing at the time. But the more exciting one that everybody wants to talk about is Silk Road. So I was the main case agent on Silk Road, which was back then the first dark web website. Literally you could buy anything. Well, there's two things you couldn't buy. You couldn't buy guns because that was a different website that it was next to it, and then you also couldn't buy fake degrees. Come to find out, the guy who ran it, he earned his degree, and he thought it was unfair for people to buy degrees online. But you could buy anything else. You could buy murders for hire. You could buy pure.
That's where he draws the line.
His line was fake degrees.
That's actually quite humorous. Okay, continue.
So this came up. The DEA was working on it, and a whole bunch of HSI was working on it. Secret Service was working on it, and we just had a big success. One of the guys I told you that we took down was using this thing called Tor, and we were able to find him even though he was using Tor. A guy in Chicago, Anar Chaos. And so Southern District of New York came over to us and says, "Hey, we got this problem. We have this website that's using Tor to hide with the IP addresses, and then using this cryptocurrency called Bitcoin." Now, remember, this was 2012, 2013. No one knew about Bitcoin, and so we're like, "All right, we'll take a look at it. We'll see what we're gonna do." Normally they take a drug approach, and they'll arrest a drug dealer and kind of work their way up the chain till they get to the head of a mob family. Well, we didn't have that. No one knew each other. It was all done through, anonymous online, anonymous currency, and anonymous mailings back and forth. And it was drugs and anything you want. It literally was the wild, wild west of the internet. And so we started taking a look at it a different technical way. And so we were eventually able to find some infrastructure. We found the server running out in Iceland. And then we found the U.S. infrastructure, which, I mean, I'm not going to tell somebody how to commit crime, but if you're in the United States, don't leave your infrastructure in the United States. It's too easy for the FBI to get there.
I would agree. I mean, just like 1 foot over the border, and it requires a lot more jurisdictional.
Set something up in Russia or in China or someplace. It's not as reliable, but man, if you have redundancy, you'll be okay. So we traced our guy out to San Francisco and made a big arrest out there. So it was they made a couple movies about it. They written a bunch of books about it. So it was an exciting time.
Yeah, it recently was back in the news again.
Yeah. Trump issued a pardon.
Yeah. Any opinions on that you care to share with us?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind. I don't think he should have been pardoned. So a full pardon means your record's wiped clean and you get to go. Presidents can also commute sentences. So if he thought that, Ross was sentenced to 2 life terms plus 40 years. So he got more than most major drug kingpins, but he was charged with kingpin status. In the United States, and the kingpin status is if you make more than $10 million in drug sales and have more than 5 employees, then you're a drug kingpin. And Ross met that qualifications on almost every drug. And so, I guess Trump thought he should have that whole thing pardoned. I disagree with that. I mean, again, could have commuted it, but good on Ross for, he the time I knew him, he was a decent guy. I think he got in over his head. I think it snowballed, and then he had a libertarian viewpoint that he believed that anyone should have access to drugs, and so that was his view. Unfortunately, we had U.S. laws that I was my job was to enforce the U.S. laws.
Uh, Fair. So to that, I was speaking with the former head of cyber for Europol, and one of the things that she mentioned was that more often than not, they got their convictions because people would brag about what they did. Did you find that to be the case where they were like so proud of what they did or how they got in that the tism took over, for lack of a better term, and they just spilled the beans?
I've seen it, well, I mean, not to keep harping on the same thing, but Ross had a diary. I mean, if you're committing things that can get you life in prison, why would you keep a record of it? So, somewhat maybe you think you're untouchable and never will get caught, but I mean, when we arrested him in the library, on his laptop was a diary of all the bad things he's done, and kept the records. He had a backup server of all the illegal conversations in sitting in Philadelphia. If you were going to run a drug empire online, why would you keep everyone's conversation on a backup server?
I feel like if I'm doing it, I'm having that wipe like at least every 24 hours, if not more frequently than that. I mean,
Yeah, there was
interesting.
a LulzSec hacker, Kayla, who ended up being a guy named Ryan Aykroyd. He had a computer in his house that literally had two wires touching, and if he hit it as the police came through the house, it wiped everything out. I mean, it wiped his whole computer completely out. There,
That's more like what I would
yeah.
expect out of I mean, maybe I've watched too many movies, but in the movies, they have a set to blow up, you
Yeah.
know?
They always talk about degausers or something sitting around there, a big magnet that wipes your hard drive as soon as you hit a button or get up out of your seat or something like that. I never saw one, but it was always fun to talk about it. And you can always rile up a judge or two and be like, "Judge, they may destroy evidence with a degausser," and then you explain the degauser for 10 minutes.
Oh, that's great. So, um, I guess what has stood out to you the most across just all of the different crimes and in terms of the victims, like is there one thing that the victims of these crimes have in common or something that they can do to make themselves less likely to be a victim? And I know you've done a lot of work on different sides, but one of the things that I've seen a lot of, and that I guess the FBI agents from where I used to live, they have the cyber division there in Huntsville, and they said that one of the number one things that they were investigating were all the romance scams and stuff like that are hitting people. Um,
Yeah, so it's called pig butchering. Yeah, we get it every single day. I get emails all the time about people. I was on a podcast last week and got emails and LinkedIn messages about what can I do, and there's not a lot of good resources. The problem with like pig butchering is it's all through crypto, and so your best thing to do is to go into IC3 and fill out a form, but give as much detail as possible. This was the wallet. Give the whole wallet address that was stolen, from, and all that, because maybe one day if they catch the guy, you may be able to get some restitution for some of it. Unfortunately, a lot of it's going overseas. Um, you know, the easiest thing is to just harden yourself a little bit. Understand that you are possibly a target. We're seeing a lot of Internet of Things being taken over. Whether it's the Chinese wanting hot points in the United States to use AI, or the bad guys needed hot points. Home routers. The
oh
FBI
yeah,
is putting out there's certain home routers that you shouldn't be buying. But if your home router, just recycle it every 90 days. Just walk by on the first of every month. Turn your router off for 5 minutes and then turn it back on. And maybe it'll have a firmware update that month and it'll make it a little bit more secure. Or if somebody's in it, it's going to boot them out of there. And they might not be able to get back in with that firmware update. So simple things like that. Understanding that, your thermostat that you plugged in and it was in admin, change the password. If anything comes with a standard password, just make it more difficult. So many people are making it too easy to be victimized.
yeah, yeah. No, I agree. Okay, so probably our last question because we're about out of time. But as I talk to you, I'm thinking about this guy that I worked with earlier in my cybersecurity career. Not going to name any names,
Uh-oh.
uh, but he definitely gave me might be a closet black hat vibe. And he was always doing things like, "Oh, I'm writing my own ransomware." What? Why? Right? Um, but it's always made me question, and I guess I have this theory that there's at least a small group of the ethical hacking community that I question if they're actually ethical and if it's not just a cover. What do you think about that? I mean, have you ever seen anything like that, or is it just me?
All the time. I see it all the
Okay.
time. I think the term ethical hacker most times is an oxymoron, because it's a hard line to cross. Like, I'll give you an example. There's a lot of great places now for people to go and learn how to hack and learn how to do things. But back in the day, back when this ethical hacking first started, there wasn't. You had to hack into boxes if you wanted to use box. Certain OSs, if you didn't have access to it, you had to hack into one of those boxes to learn how to use it. And so that line of, well, I'm not doing anything, I'm just learning. That's still a violation of 18 USC 1030. You're still breaking into something that it's exceeding authorized access.
Yeah.
Well, it's not a felony unless you do $5,000 worth of damage, but part of the damage is investigating what you did in there. And if it takes a consultant to get in there and $5,000 worth of investigation, now you got a felony.
Yeah. Well,
So
and then 5,000 for a cybersecurity incident responder is you're definitely hitting that in a second. So
hello, this is cybersecurity. Oh, that's
ding, we're at
$5,000.
5,000.
So
Exactly.
yeah. So yeah, I think it's some, when you say you're an ethical hacker and you just kind of shrug off and not know maybe you don't know exactly what the laws are, and maybe you don't, you're pushing things, but it's hard to not push the bounds, and you want to learn. Like, I'm interested. I like to reverse engineer things and see how things work, and get into some of these things that they're doing.
We called
Um,
it dynamic scoping.
yeah.
Go
Hector
ahead.
calls it free pen tests, for those that don't, the unwilling.
That's awesome. Well, it's been really a pleasure having you on the show today. Any sort of final thoughts for the audience here?
Well, I mean, if I always leave this with the audience, if you're in a business, if you own your own business or you're in an IT department of a business, get to know an FBI agent. Your business is going to be attacked at some point, and it's going to be attacked on a Friday right before a long weekend. They always go in on a Friday before a long weekend because they know you want to leave. So get to know. Go to InfraGard. Join your local InfraGard. Join someplace where you can pick up a phone and you can call the right law enforcement people when the incident happens. FBI agents are happy to come and talk with you. Happy to have you out there. Happy to know you. They get credit for it. So don't be introduced to the FBI just when the house is on fire. Get that relationship long beforehand. So
Yeah.
they're happy if no one's speaking somewhere locally at a local conference. Go out and meet them when they come off stage. Shake their hand, be like, hey, I wanted to meet you, and because I know I'm going to need you one day, and I don't want that to be the first time I meet you. So don't be scared of the FBI.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's because of my company, I've actually worked with the FBI quite a little bit. And that was one of the biggest things that they kept telling me is, hey, as you're out there, as you're talking to people, make sure that they know they don't have to be scared to call the FBI when if an incident happens. We're here to help, and there's a lot of tools we have at our disposal. What's interesting though, and I got to tell you this story.
Yeah.
So they warned me. They had said, because I was giving a keynote over in Stockholm, and they said, hey, just be really careful. You're going over to Stockholm. We've had some issues. And so I go over. It's the last day of the trip. I'm tired. I leave my laptop in the room. I go for a walk, and my wife forgot something. So we're only out of the room maybe 10 minutes before we get back to it. And all of our bags are open. Everything's on the floor. Laptop's still there. And so I go, hey guys, I've got my people, but I feel like you'd be better at investigating this. You want to take a look at it? And they're like, oh, it's a fully patched MacBook Pro. Yeah, we don't have the capability. Okay, guys. I
We
just
used
thought
to
it was a
bring
good story.
we used to bring dummy laptops just to make them work more harder. So bring a fully encrypted 2 terabyte drive and leave that in your room. That'll give them some time to mess with things.
They did say that as long as they had it fully patched, there wasn't a lot to worry about. But in my experience, you get full access to a Mac. That's their Achilles heel.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's tough. So, but yeah, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. It was great talking to you today.
yeah, thank you so much. It's been a fabulous podcast. And yeah, thank you. Have a great day.